Coming to you from an undisclosed location somewhere deep in the heart of the Santa Monica Mountains, I am your intrepid host, L.A. Marzulli. Welcome to another episode of The Vault. I want to give kudos for this entire show for my brother. A couple of years back, he suggested doing this, taking some of the outtakes, because he's been all over the place filming, and a lot of stuff just never gets shown to the public. So here's another one, another little outtake that's never been shown before. And we were up at America Stonehenge in 2015, so it's almost 10 years old. And we're with, of course, our friend Dennis Stone, part of a Stone family. Isn't that interesting? And Dennis is a walking encyclopedia when it comes to all things American Stonehenge. So we'll get into that. But first, a word from our trusted sponsor. Have you ever wondered what happened to the legendary Chuck Norris? I recently saw a video he made and I was shocked. The man is in his 80s and still kicking butt and working out and staying active. What's even more shocking is he's stronger, can work out longer, and even has plenty of energy left over for his grandkids. He did this by just making one change. He says he still feels like he's in his 50s. His wife even started doing this one thing too, and she never felt better. She says she feels 10 years younger. Her body looks leaner, and she has energy all day. Chuck made a special video that explains everything. Make sure you watch it by going to chuckdefense.com/LA or by clicking on the link below this video. It will change the way you think about your health. Once again, that's chuckdefense.com/LA. Click on the link in the description below to watch the video now. You won't believe how simple it is. Just a reminder, the legendary Chuck Norris is a whopping 84 years old, and yet has more energy than I do. He discovered he could create dramatic changes to his health simply by focusing on three things that sabotage our body as we age. Folks, check this out. Please go to the description box below, chuckdefense.com/LA, www.chuckdefense.com/LA. So as I was saying before the commercial break, America Stonehenge is basically a 4,000-year-old site, somewhere in that range. I mean, the dating is what it is, but it goes back about at least 3,500 years ago. And we see these megalithic structures all around the site. Now remember, we talk about this in this little clip, but I want to bring this to your attention, that site, let's say 3,500 years ago, was on a hilltop, a high place. There were no trees. It was basically meadow. So all those standing stones which are around the site, when you stood in the center of a site, you would be able to see all those standing stones. And of course, they correlate to the equinoxes and solstices. So, and it's also built on an 18-and-a-half-year lunar cycle, as you'll hear. So the bottom line is, as far as I know, First Nation people, with all due respect to them, Native Americans did not know about the 18-and-a-half-year lunar cycle. Many people in Europe had no idea of the 18-and-a-half-year lunar cycle. Here's something to think about. We know from the book of Enoch that the fallen angel Sariel handed this information to mankind, not making this stuff up. That's why the book of Enoch, in my opinion, is so important, because it gives us an inside view into the antediluvian world, the world before the flood. Anyway, here's the clip, and I'll weigh in on the other side.
Charging your equipment. Sometimes it drains out.
Sometimes it drains the batteries. We were down in Peru again, actually a place called, and the same thing happened.
Yep.
Drained everything. But so far we're working. So what is the standing stone here?
Yeah, it's just one of the many mysteries of the site. This stone here, if you look at the bottom of it, has stone pedestals supporting it.
Right.
And sometime in the past, ancient past, the stone fell over. And in the early 70s, one of our researchers thought that this stone, it was laying down here, a lot of rubble, belonged up against the table. And he found kind of a notch here, so he stood it here. It was here for, I guess for a better part of a decade, I guess. One of the other researchers came along in the late 70s and looked at it and said, I just don't think that belongs there. He went over here and he cleaned, and he found the little pedestals, and it sits on the pedestals perfectly. Now,
how did they move it?
That's a good question. And how did these guys do it? in the 1980s. I think it was in the early. When did he do this? 88, I think it was.
Okay.
He used levers and ropes and hoist and stuff. A little bit modern. He tried to use ancient where he could, but there's also safety things. It's not that easy to move something like
No,
this.
it's not.
You can
Good
get hurt very,
grief.
very easily. And there's that little notch again we mentioned on a lot of these big stones. That stone right there also sits on the same type of pedestals. It's almost like, and that's original. And if you go to the other side of that, I should have showed you that when we went into the...
Has anyone measured the distance between the stones? Is there any correlation?
I'm sure they have. And you notice they're kind of similar. Some people suggest this is a male symbol. It's a little bit skinnier, more phallic.
Right.
That one there is wider hips, female. I mean, it's one of those things, male-female fertility.
Right.
You know,
Could be.
I think West Kennett Avenue has that, doesn't it? In England, West Kennett Avenue has that same thing going from Avebury. I think they got the same thing. Now this is a big piece of stone. It's about 9,000 pounds, and it has been quarried. And believe it or not, it came from the area underneath where the astronomical center is. We found the cutout. It's about 40 feet, and they dragged it over here somehow. They set it up on these 4 legs.
Good
back
grief.
wall. The speaking tube is right below here.
Right.
And it's offset. It's not in the middle of the table. Maybe something to do with acoustics, but it's on the right side. And it has a little blockage, as we mentioned in there. We got to get fixed someday. And when the voice comes out, people up here, if they were standing on this platform up here, would watch a ceremony hearing
And
the
that's
voice.
what's going on.
Well, exactly. And probably a spirit or God or somebody talking to them. And you can't tell this is really a chamber from up there. It looks like a continuation of that, what they call a sheepback. See that ridge of rock? It kind of continues. You can see a hand sticking out of the...
I see that.
Thank you.
cousin it, or whatever it is from the Addams family, or whatever thing, or it. That big slab right there, to your, over there, that big one laying down, that stone, we wanted for years. What is that? Does that stand up next to the table? Maybe that's why he put that one here and that one would stand. It does not. What we think it is that stone right there, the end of it gets really skinny. It fits up on top of the double solar. It's the other roof slab.
Okay.
Right against that, and it fits into that little V. The end of it's really skinny.
I see.
Right into it.
So this came down for something.
It fell down because
Let's go back to the sacrificial table, because this is just absolutely fascinating. Did they find evidence of human remains here?
No, the soil up here in New England unfortunately dissolves human bones, and animal bones, in about 300 years, we've been told, up to 1,000 years. It's very, very acidic, and then you have animals eating the bones, and you just have it rotting. So if you find any bones, generally speaking, just a few centuries old. But the chemicals are still there, and if the soil had been checked back in the 1930s, the technology wasn't there though. They could maybe tell you that there was a human sacrifice or something like that.
What about in the rock itself? Wouldn't we be able to take a section of the rock and see if it bore human blood on or something like that?
That's a really good question. I know technology is getting better all the time, and say this was used for sacrifices and the blood got into the rock. We do know, we talked to many geologists, including one more recently, Scott Walters, and he explained that the top of this rock is all coming off very slowly.
Right.
So the surface you're looking at here is probably not the surface they looked at 3,000 or 4,000 years ago.
Wow.
It's been wearing down. Now, is there any blood traces in here? Good question. Will technology be able to do that in the future? I hope maybe they'll have something that will say, look, there was blood on this table at one time. You know, those forensic TV shows, they put the different chemicals on, they see blood. I don't know after a few thousand years whether that will still be here. But it's an excellent question. And if somebody out there has the technology and knows about that, please contact us.
Absolutely.
We'd love to see what they can do.
Fascinating.
As you can see, it's been slowly, it's taking out, and Scott says we got to protect the table because you're slowly starting to lose a lot of pieces off of it just from exposure. You can tell. It does have this groove. The groove is about 4 feet wide, approximately by 6. The table is about 9 feet by 6. We didn't find, and back in the 1930s, Mr. Goodwin's lead engineer from MIT, Roscoe Whitney, said that when he measured these structures, they did not conform to units of measure that we use today, or even in the last few hundred years, like inches, yards, and that kind of thing, and feet. He said it did.
Cubit?
It did, but he didn't know it. He didn't know. What it does seem to fit is more like the megalithic yard, and I know megalithic yard by megalithic yard, I think it's almost a cubic, a 19 to 20, 21.
Right.
But the hypotenuse. But the megalithic yard seems to be something that reoccurs all over a good part of Europe.
Stonehenge, England. Yeah,
Stonehenge, exactly. And Dr. Tom, we met him back in 1983 with his son Alexander, and they both passed away. I think the grandson's carrying out the work. They found the megalithic inch, the fathom, the yard, and the rod.
Wow.
And my son and I looked at this again in the last 2 years, and we came up more recently and did a couple more measurements. for a gentleman from England because he was interested in the megalithic unit. I think it's going to take somebody with laser beams and a proper, proper equipment, because we went up with the megalithic and it seems to fit. In the 1970s, I did a diorama on the site, and we had the megalithic yard, and we went around, and you can find the megalithic yard here. But, is that what they used? I can't.
Don't know.
It seemed to fit. I don't think it's conclusive, but I can say it seems to work. The megalithic yard seems to work here. And there's another couple sites in New England, in New York too, where they used the megalithic yard, it appears. It's not conclusive, but I think they may have used that because they used something here to measure this. And that MIT engineer said in the 1930s it doesn't conform to our modern units, which is interesting in by itself.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Dennis, can we go down and check out the museum?
Absolutely.
With those artifacts?
One other thing you noticed by your feet
Yes,
right there
yes,
is a
we
cutout
did.
in the bedrock.
Yep.
And a vase could sit here, right in this little cutout. It seems to be man-made. A vase, or they could just let it go in that. Now on that stone that's down in Shutesbury, Mass, it's an anaglyph, the raised carving, 75 miles from here, Mount Mineral, and it has chambers. A farmer turned over the stone and this raised carving, and it looks like a person there on like this, with the feet kind of apart. It looks like a necklace or a rope around its neck, and by its left leg, it's laying on its back, left leg right about here.
Right.
There's a circle right where, like the lip of a vase. And that carving is the NERA, New England Antiquities Research Association's, they use that for their, what do you call it, their
logo?
Logo, yes, exactly. It's their logo. They've been using it since 1964, and it's got the same bell shape. It's got a person laying on it. It's like somebody came here, was inspired by this, went back 75 miles, which is probably quite a ways in those, and made this carving of what they saw here. It's almost like that. It's circumstantial. It's really interesting.
Very interesting.
Very interesting.
Thank you so much, Dennis. It's just absolutely fascinating. Wow.
Well, thank you so much. Yeah, I'm glad you made it up here today to see our site and everything.
So there you have it. Dennis is, like I said, a walking encyclopedia. He's been entrenched in that site literally for decades. And Dennis's son, Kelsey, was a wealth of information for us when we were there. It was Kelsey who figured out the alignment between America Stonehenge and the summer solstice standing stone, which correlates to America Stonehenge. By the way, that's in our book, On the Trail of the Nephilim. It's also in On the Trail of the Nephilim, the series. I believe we have two films on Stonehenge, number 4 and number 5. The Bow Connection, where we talk about the Bow Stone. What is that doing in New Hampshire? Tubal of the Canaanites in dedication. I mean, that's an astounding find. And we kind of broke the story on that because it traces back to the Phoenicians. And, the Phoenicians basically in Beirut, it's Nephilim Central. Where did all this stuff come from? Where did it all come from? Folks, there is a hidden history that's been deliberately obfuscated from the peoples of the world. And you hear me talk about that all the time. So this show is sort of a mixed bag in that it's on the trail of a Nephilim, but it's also from the vault. Anyway, folks, this book runs a disclosure. Prophecy Watchers, I want to thank Josiah for writing a wonderful review of the book in the Prophecy Watchers magazine, prophecywatchers.com. You can check that out. Thank you, Josiah. Really appreciate that. The Prophecy Watchers Conference was incredible. It's great to see our tribe, because that's what it is. Great to have people come up to the table, all the meet and greeting, all the questions. We did a couple of shows from there. I want to thank Bob Ulrich, Gary Stearman, maybe not in that order, Gary Stearman, Bob Ulrich, Mondo Gonzalez, and the rest of the crew of Prophecy Watchers for putting on a fantastic conference. All the speakers were great. It goes by so quick. It just goes by so quick. I want to thank Mondo for the great Q&A he did with Lee Brainerd. That was really, I think, remarkable. People writing the questions, and here I'm on stage next to Mondo and Lee Brainerd. Two guys a lot smarter than I am, by the way, and I'm fielding questions. But about UFOs and about the Nephilim. I'll be doing a show real soon here. Probably we'll post this on Friday about the UFO flap from the 2 pilots. I think you'll find this multiple pilots saw this thing. And of course, one of the modern day Philip Klaus's debunkers is trying to tell us that, oh no, nothing is here, it's just Starlink. Excuse me, this thing goes out 20 miles and then comes flashing back in. Starlink doesn't do that. Starlink goes in one direction only. So whatever these lights are, they're going bam, 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 like that. Shooting out 20 miles over the ocean, then coming back. Come on, folks, it's not Starlink. Quit lying to us. and I'll get into that report. You'll probably see that one tomorrow. Anyway, folks, our Christmas store is open, lamarzulli.com, lamarzulli.com. Road to Disclosure, our 10-part UFO series. I want to thank my co-host, business partner, Gil Zimmerman, for working on this. We're working on another film right now, Holy Shroud, Holy Fire. Should be out in January, God willing. Also, On the Trail of a Nephilim #9. But the 10-box UFO DVD series is what you want to get. Because, you know, folks, the phenomenon is real, burgeoning, and not going away. Thanks for watching another episode of The Vault. My hat is on and off at the same time, and thanking my brother for suggesting this years ago, and we're finally getting around to it. I love doing this show because it's kind of behind the scenes. Anyway, that's it for today, folks. Thanks so much for watching. Hit the subscribe button. We'll be back tomorrow with a special UFO update.